Hey, you guys, this is Raven. As you see on the screen, I have my two books. The Bible will be my textbook, as well as the world is seen through the eyes of the raven, hear her cry. That's my poetry book, where I quote, "For a bird of the air shall carry the voice, and that which has wings shall tell the matter." Ecclesiastes 10:20. Today, I wanted to talk about what we eat, what we've been given, what our choices are, because there's a lot of things I've been discovering, and I've been wanting to do this video. I've entitled it "To Eat or Not to Eat." In this video, "To Eat or Not to Eat," I will discuss what we consume, how it affects our health, organic, genetically modified and engineered foods, the new onions that don't burn your eyes or cause them to tear, what sugar is, why you crave what you crave, why you have trouble sleeping, and other food industry practices, plus how it impacts us. This video will perhaps explain why there is an influx in sickness, disease, cancer, viruses, and so forth. In my book, The Bible Will Be My Textbook, on page 29, I write, "The mind, heart, and spirit are the three most powerful assets a human being possesses and can be very destructive and altered when genetically engineered, modified, and chemically induced by what we consume through our mouth, our eyes, ears, heart, mind, and spirit via food, alcohol, and sugary beverages, smoking, drugs, vaping, suggestive images and ads, music, video games, and movies." To begin, I have to start at the beginning. So I go to Genesis 1:11, where it reads, "And God said, let the earth bring forth grass, the herb yielding seed, and the fruit tree yielding fruit after his kind, whose seed is in itself upon the earth, and it was so." When you read Genesis 2:4-6, it said, "These are the generations of the heavens and of the earth when they were created, in the day that the Lord God made the earth and the heavens, and every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb of the field before it grew. For the Lord God had not caused it to rain upon the earth, and there was not a man to till the ground. But there went up a mist from the earth and watered the whole face," which is the surface of the earth. So in Genesis 2:5, it lets us know it hadn't rained on the earth, but mist watered the entire earth. But now you have man wanting to grow fruits and veggies vertical, without soil, sun, seed, or rain, mist, or dew from God. They're basically trying to live independently of God. In Genesis 1:29-31, it said, "And God said, Behold, I have given you every herb bearing seed, which is upon the face of the earth, and every tree in the which is the fruit of a tree yielding seed. To you it shall be for meat, and to every beast of the earth, and to every fowl of the earth, and to everything that creepeth upon the earth, wherein there is life, I have given every green herb for meat." And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And the evening and the morning were the sixth day. In my poetry book, as you see on the screen, I wrote a poem called "Who Broke the Mold?" And I used verse 31, and God saw everything he had made, and behold, it was very good. I'll read that. I'll just share it. It's very short. Who broke the mold? The womb is too infested to bear children. The water is too dirty to swim in, fish, or drink. The air is too polluted to inhale. The soil is not rich enough to plant. The salt has lost its savor. The soul has been sold. The body is no longer the temple. Who broke the mold? I also use Colossians 2:16 in the video December 25th, the celebration of Christ or Christmas. But I will use it here and in other videos because it mentions subject matters that I'll discuss in other videos, like what we eat, drink, and so forth. So Colossians 2:16 says, let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of an holy day or of the new moon or of the Sabbath days. These scriptures I'll read below. They're in my book. The Bible will be my textbook, just to support the statements I made on page 56 in my book. Acts 10:13, and there came a voice to him, rise, Peter, kill and eat. What God has cleansed, that call not thou common. So it had to be alive for him to say, rise up, kill it, and eat. You know, he was trying to show him that what he blessed, you don't call it uncommon. There's another scripture that says when it's offered, take in thanksgiving. In 1 Corinthians 8:8, it said, but meat commendeth us not to God, for neither if we eat are we the better, neither if we eat not are we the worse. In Matthew 15:11, and then in 17 through 20, it reads, not that which goeth into the mouth defileth a man, but that which cometh out of the mouth, this defileth a man. Do not ye understand that whatsoever entereth in at the mouth goeth into the belly, and is cast out into the drought? But those things which proceedeth out of the mouth come forth from the heart, and they defile a man. For out of the heart proceedeth evil thoughts, murders, adulteries, fornications, thefts, false witness, blasphemies. These are the things which defile a man. But to eat with unwashed hands defileth not a man. So in there is just saying it's not what goes in us that defiles us, it's what comes out, because that which comes out comes from the heart. So in all these scriptures, it's saying it doesn't matter whether you eat meat or not, whether you drink or not, but more so how much you consume and the benefits of what you consume. Because the beef of your parents' day is not the beef of today. It's certainly not of your grandparents' day. The fish of the day is not even of your parents' day or your grandparents' day. You know, it's actually best to buy wild fish than farmed, because they're doing a lot of things with it being farmed. I mean, when it's in the wild, it knows and has instinct on what it should be eaten. Whereas, you know, when man's involved, it feeds it what it wants to feed. You know, now they actually have clone meat that they're selling. I remember seeing an article of 10 of the highest things in sodium, and I was surprised to see raw chicken was on there, you know, and I was kind of puzzled. So as I read it, it said they add sodium to the chicken so it weighs more at the register. So in other words, the salt, it helps retain water. So it weighs heavier and you have to pay more. So for one, you're overpaying. And two, you don't know they added the sodium to the raw chicken. So you take it home and add seasoned salt, garlic salt, onion salt, salt, and the next thing you know, you got high blood pressure, not even knowing that they've added a lot of sodium to make it heavier at the register. It's as the years grew by, I would use garlic powder and onion powder instead of garlic salt and onion salt. In addition, I went from that to then using the real garlic and the real onion. So now I'll talk about the produce: organic, genetically engineered, or genetically modified. So you got organic, natural, non-GMO. You can't really say whether it's organic, natural, or non-GMO because of cross-contamination, unless it's in a controlled and concealed environment. Because you have bees, birds, butterflies, ladybugs, and such going from one to another, pollinating. And so if you had non-GMO and organic growing in your garden, if it's not controlled, if that bee goes over there to something that is engineered or modified, or something over there that's been sprayed, then it then comes and pollinate what you have that was organic or non-GMO. I know at Big Lots, if you have a Big Lots, they have a greenhouse there. It's just one size, and it's not a large size, but you can grow a significant amount of things in there. Amazon has several different sizes if you care to invest in one, but they do have small enough ones that can go on a patio if your son, if the sun is actually shining on that patio or that balcony. If it'll fit, that's a good thing to invest in. I also seen an article where they were saying they were going to be growing things indoors. And I was thinking to myself, if it's grown indoors, unless they just have the top where it's exposed to the sun, I was like, there's probably no sun or soil, and perhaps no seed. So as I read the article, that's what they said. There's no seed, there's no sun. They didn't actually mention seed, but they said there's no sun and there's no soil. They actually add something to the water to enrich it. It also said 90% of the tomatoes in fast food places are genetically modified or engineered and have been grown indoors. They're finding it saves money, but how is it affecting our health? It can't always be money driven, but anyway, that it is. One day, I remember, this has been a while back, I had bought some bread, and I don't consume a lot of bread, but I bought some bread and I had been eating it. And when it got to the end, there was like one left. He didn't have a partner, So I was like, I always hear about these stories where, somebody finds a burger or something in their car that fell out of the bag, when they had a group of kids for soccer or whatever, and one fell out. And then when they find it, like weeks later, it's still in the same condition. Or there was a doctor, I think, in his office or in the dental office where they said something out, and it's actually been out for 2 years, and it's pretty much looking the same, without changing significantly. So anyway, with that in mind, I decided to leave that one piece of bread, just in the pack, since it had another one. It didn't have another one to go with it. So like over a month or so went by. It never had any mold on it. And so I looked for a number, and I found a number on there, and I called. And the lady said, she put me on hold because I told her, I've had this bread a significant amount of time and it has not changed. There's no mold on it. So she told me to hold. She came back and asked me, did it have a number on it? And I gave her the number on there. She put me on hold, said she was going to talk to the lab. So I don't know how customer service just calls the lab directly that fast. But anyway, she told me that they said that there's an ingredient, and she asked me that was that ingredient on my pack, and I looked and it was, and she said that's an anti-molding agent. And so I was like, that's how we tell when something's bad. That's just like if you have milk. You normally do the smell taste and you look at it, see if it's curled, but and that's how you tell, okay, I need to throw this away. But if they put something in it where it causes it not to smell or not to curl, then how do you know? So anyway, it didn't mold after a month. And then also we notice on the packs of bread where it says it's bleach flour and enriched with like thymine, lysine, and other stuff. So basically, we know when we use bleach with our clothes, it removes stain. That's the purpose of bleaching, is to remove, to lighten. So anyway, when they bleach, there's nutrition removed basically by the process and in the process. So then you got to enrich it by adding back into what was removed from it. So now it's not its natural source. Now it's coming from an outside source. When I was growing up, nobody I knew was lactose intolerant. They didn't have any problems with gluten. We wasn't even hearing the word gluten. I don't think I knew anybody with allergies either. Barely anybody with asthma. There was maybe 2 people I knew with Down syndrome. Not autism, dementia, Alzheimer, none of that. But we used to hear the word see now, which they were forgetful. But now, we hear dementia, we hear Alzheimer, and there's all kind of new things coming up. But anyway, wheat, soy, and corn are the primarily modified and engineered ingredients. And many things are derived from those, wheat, soy, and corn are now being changed, because they're modified and then they're putting them in products. Then now we're getting all these health problems. It's like when you paint, you add a primer, and it appears that our bodies are being primed to be susceptible to whatever is coming. I remember reading an article and also laws of change because antibiotics were being added to cows, pigs, and chickens when they weren't sick. The documentary I watched said that antibiotics are given daily, like in small dosages, to chickens to promote growth. I didn't even know antibiotics do that, promote growth, but apparently that's what happens in chickens. They also said they tested feathers and found Prozac and aspirin. And I was like, I didn't sign up for all this, medication on my plate, so that made me stop eating chicken. That, and there's also a couple of scriptures that mention refraining from things strangled and offered to sacrifice. And chicken is the only thing I can really think of that fits that description. So now I'll share some of the places I've eaten and shopped. So I was going to Golden Corral and I noticed the tomatoes first, how all of the tomatoes, they were the exact same color. They were very light till they almost was pink. They were very firm. And so they all look the same on the outside and the inside. So the texture, the appearance, the color, the taste were all the same inside and out. I also go to an Afro-Caribbean restaurant, and I've noticed the same thing with the cucumbers and the purple onions. So I always tell them I don't need those 2 things added. And I told him why. I also asked him where he gets his produce, and I just share some of this with him so he'll be mindful when he purchases for his restaurant. So anyway, back to Golden Corral, I then noticed the cucumbers. and the green was perfectly green, perfectly smooth, very dark green. The inner side was very, strong white color. And then I was like, wow. Then I went to the cauliflower. I was like, it looked bleached. I mean, it was white. And we know we used to see a little brown on the cauliflower. We know on cucumbers there might be like a little brown, what I call a little scab. You see that little brown here and there on it. And these don't have that at all. Then I went to a Korean restaurant in San Francisco, and these these cucumbers, I was like, I never seen anything like it. These cucumbers had 3 things on them, and it was in the formation of a pyramid. So you had upper center, you had lower left, and lower far right. And each of these has strings with seeds on the end, and they were all growing toward the middle so that all the seeds will meet up in the middle. Clearly modified. Cucumbers back in the day, they just had seeds just scattered in the middle. And also when you cut on one side and you cut on the other side to make a slice, you can see the seeds from both sides. So this, they didn't have strings attached to them, but these are clearly modified. So then I go to Sprouts. I'm looking through their produce, and I used to get a lot of produce from them, and in the organic area. So anyway, I get this organic cucumber, and I see it came from Mexico. I cut the tomato. You know how when you cut the ends off the round part and you get toward like where it's not so round, you start seeing the seeds. I had to go about an inch inward to get to the seeds because these were just like the ones I saw at the Korean restaurant. And so I didn't see seeds for a while until about an inch. And then when I got toward the middle, I cut on one side, cut on the other side, made the slice, and I turned it over. I looked on both sides, and the ones that's on one side, you can't see all the way through to the other side. They're very, very tiny, and they have strings. It's almost like an umbilical cord with a seed on the end. And so I was like, I have to ask them about this, because and I'm learning, because I used to wonder why some packs that I saw had organic and non-GMO. I was like, why did they put both? And then I was like, can it be organic and not non-GMO? Or can it be non-GMO and not organic? And so, I've learned that organic just means they didn't spray it with pesticides. And GMO, where it's genetically modified or engineered, because the way they engineer it, it really doesn't require pesticides, little to none. So they can actually tell you it's organic, but it can still be engineered or modified. So it's very tricky. To me, technology doesn't mix with food. Just leave it natural. Whole food you generally would be able to trust, but now they're tweaking, modifying, and engineering it. So I was in San Francisco. They had built this new Whole Foods. It's humongous. And I went in there. Was like, I'm going to be in here every day, And so that changed. But what happened was I went to the information booth, and I didn't do this immediately, but I don't remember what it was. Oh, I think I was going to the food that is already made. And I was getting, like, say, broccoli and cauliflower, asparagus, whole foods, but they've seasoned them, right? And so I started looking at the labels, and it said may contain wheat, soy, or corn. And I'm like, why is that? You don't see the wheat, corn, or soy, you see the asparagus. But what I'm learning, they're actually seasoning the whole food, what starts out as a whole food, they're seasoning it with something from wheat, corn, or soy to make it modified or engineered. So when I saw the label that it could contain those three, which are the major ones that are engineered and a lot of things derived from them, that was a red flag to me. So I go to the information booth and ask them, is everything in here genetic, non-GMO, and organic? They said they don't know. Mind you, it's the information booth. But anyway, I asked to speak to a manager. The manager comes over and claims not to know. Like, you're the manager. So then she said, let me ask the cook. He cooks, he would know. Like, why would you have to ask the cook? But anyway, she goes get the cook. He comes out, she walks away. So I guess she doesn't want to be responsible for what is said, so she walks away not to hear it. So he's talking to me in a low voice, like just whispering. And he's telling me that they try to, it's not always genetically, non-GMO or organic, but they try when they can get it. But see, everybody was used to Whole Foods being, in Trader Joe's and other places like that, being healthy. But when you start getting companies like Amazon buying Whole Foods, now they control the food, and things have changed. So just because Whole Foods and Trader Joe's used to be, healthy, you have to ask questions now when you get this new ownership and stuff. So anyway, the cook comes out. He's telling me they try to get non-GMO and organic when they can. So anyway, a different time, I go in there. I like to go in there to get certain other things that are fine to eat. And I asked the lady behind the counter, I said, hey, is everything in here non-GMO or organic? Is this salmon farmed or is it wild? And she starts talking to me in a real way, but she's constantly looking over her shoulder, making sure nobody else hears her tell me what's really going on. And she says, I don't eat anything from that bar. And she pointed to it. And she said, you have to be careful what you put in your system. And so we continue to talk and she keeps looking over her shoulder. So I was like, wow, okay. So then I'm in Trader Joe's recently and I have a conversation with the person who is putting the produce out. And I asked him, is everything in here non-GMO and organic? And again, he's like, I would think so, I would think so. And I said, but you're not sure? And then I start telling him some of the things that I've noticed. And then he calls over, I think he's a manager of the produce, and he asks him. And he says he asked 5 years ago. But he said, maybe I should ask now. And I'm like, yes, you should. So anyway, he tells me if it has a Trader Joe's brand that is non-GMO and organic. So I said, okay, so I end up purchasing some oranges rather. And I go home and I start eating the orange. And then I'm like, I don't remember running into any seeds. So then I go to the bag and it actually says seedless on the bag. And I'm like, well, how do you grow it without seeds? So I call, and this guy that answered, I told him, the other person told me if it had a Trader Joe's brand, that it was non-GMO and it was organic. And the guy told me that just because it didn't have any seeds doesn't make it non-GMO. And I'm like, well, how is that? So remember earlier when I read in Genesis that God gave us what bears a seed. It should have a seed. So organic just means it hasn't been sprayed with pesticides, but that doesn't mean it's non-GMO, because GMO does not require pesticides or very little. So you can put organic, but it may still be modified and engineered, which means you're not really eating all real food. So non-GMO doesn't mean organic. It means it's not been organic means that it hasn't been sprayed. Genetically modified or engineered, they've messed with it. And they could put organic even if it's been messed with, because it hasn't been sprayed. So there are pesticides that are banned in the US but not in other countries. You don't necessarily have the FDA and places like that regulating in other countries. And so because they're banned here but not in other countries, they import it, So that's something else to be mindful. I remember going to Walgreens and I got some trail mix, and it was saying the raisins came from this country, or that country. The peanuts came from this country, or that country. The dates came from, I was like, well, which one did it come from? Why can't you be specific? Like, at least it lets you know if they know where the raisin came from. If it ends up tainted, you can know the source. If it came from that country, you can know, and contain it because you know where it came from. Just like when they have a recall on something because of Ebola or E. coli or, some of these salmonella, some of this stuff that they're getting. If you don't know really which country, they probably do. They just tell us that. But anyway, and then you get to vegan. Vegan is something that wasn't born or had parents. This includes all aspects of the cow, the meat, the milk, the cheese. Nothing from the pig, nothing from the chicken, to include the meat and the eggs. Nothing from the fish, to include like the oil, like even when they put supplements. Sometime on capsules, the capsule will say, I think they might say vegan, because the capsule, that little plastic part, some of it is vegan, where they make it from vegetables or it's plant-based. And that's another thing I forgot to include on here, plant-based. Just because it's plant-based, that only means that's the foundation. They don't tell you what it's built upon. And so plant-based is still genetically engineered, but like Beyond Meat, Beyond Burger, Impossible Burger, they're saying that it contains genetically engineered. And come to find out, after we learned certain things, they said, well, we didn't create Impossible Burgers or Beyond Meat or Beyond Burger, by using the plant-based. We didn't create it for vegetarians or vegans. We created for meat lovers to get more vegetables. But see, that was tricky. The vegans end up going, oh, this is plant-based, I can go eat this. But then it was like, then we learned, wait, it's genetically modified. We didn't know that. They didn't say that. Just the plant-based it was a grab, so it, it's become so tricky, But anyway, the supplements, that part, the capsule itself, that is made, when it's not vegan, it's made from, I can't think of the name, but what happened is when they have, like, say, beef, and they have the certain part for human consumption, then they got a lower scale that's for dog consumption. Then they have that other, they may call it pink slime, but they have that other where they dry it and it's powdery, and they use that in other things like I can't think of the word. It's not anyway, I'll try to include that on another one. But it's meat after the dog consumption portion that they, is it glycerin? It's something like that. But anyway, I'll have to include that on the other one. So now I'm going to go to the light that emits from our electronic devices. It actually has been said to reduce the melatonin, which aids in our sleep. Our body naturally produces, but the melatonin capsules reduces our ability to produce melatonin. So it's better to actually consume something natural with melatonin in it, such as cherry extract that's 6 times concentrated, or either tea, that has chamomile or valerian, or even the valerian capsules. I wanted to share this with you. Okay, so this guy gave me these. I didn't plan on eating them, but I didn't want it to make it look like I was going to turn down everything he offered me, so I went on and accepted it. This says strawberry straws. And the ingredients, they don't contain anything from a strawberry. The first ingredient is corn syrup. High fructose corn syrup is the second. Wheat flour is the third. And sugar is the fourth. It has some other things on it, probably not necessary. And it has the color added red 40. It says allergen information, contains wheat, produced with genetic engineering. That's right there in the part I highlighted. So you see, that may have been, no, that was the right way. But it says produced with genetic engineering. And I'm like, what would be in candy that's like a Twizzlers or a Red Vine? It's called strawberry straws sour punch. What would be in it where it would be genetically engineered? And so I looked at the ingredients, and as I read to you, it says wheat flour. Another time, I'm in the snack bar at my job, and I buy these. It says peanuts. They're roasted and dry roasted and salted. Now, it says contains bioengineered food ingredients, peanuts from USA, Argentina, Mexico, packaged in the USA. So they tell you all these different places it can come from. And see, it's bioengineering food ingredients and the peanuts, and they just dry roast it. So the first ingredients is peanuts, then sugar, then salt, then corn starch. Then it has some type of yeast and a yeast extract, and it has corn syrup. And it says onion powder, spices, garlic powder. It says contains peanuts, product made on the same equipment, and may contain traces of milk, wheat, soy, tree nuts, and sesame. So this is where it gets tricky, because some of these labels don't say it contains bioengineered food ingredients. Some just use that statement up there, made on the same equipment and may contain traces of milk, soy, tree nuts, and sesame. So that's a way around the label, not fully disclosing to you what's in there. Also, Here's a Cheerio box. It says contains bioengineered food ingredients. And I actually, here it is. I was trying to show you where it says that. There it is, contains bioengineered food ingredients. And that's on the box of cereal. Honey Nut Cheerios, made with real honey, but it's made with real bioengineered food ingredients too. And so I ended up when I noticed that, I said, I'm taking these remaining box of cereals back. And so when I was in there, I looked at every box of cereal. Everyone. Okay? And only one brand did not say that. But it's not something you'd want to eat, because you might as well just get you a piece of cardboard. But all the other brands said bioengineered food ingredient, all the cereal boxes, except for one. So then I was like, when I was standing in line, because that candy I just showed you, I saw some red vines. And I said, I wonder if that's on the red vines. So I picked it up, boom, on the red vines, bioengineered food ingredient. And I was like, I looked at the ingredients. Again, wheat flour. Why are you adding wheat flour to the candy? That's to make it engineered, because you are what you eat. You're only going to be as healthy as what you put on your plate and what you put in your glass, So I was like, okay, it's in the cereal, it's in the candy. They're trying to target the kids, And then I ended up reading some other things as I walked through. And I saw Twizzlers, same thing, And then I ended up looking at other things like Pop-Tarts, Ritz crackers, just going through looking at stuff. Same thing, bioengineered food ingredients. Again, you are what you eat, and you're only going to be as healthy as what you put on your plate and in your glass. So recently I was sharing some of this information with some, and I was talking about the onion and different stuff. And then the person I was speaking to, actually two of them, they both said, oh, you know what? I bought some onions and I was ready, for my eyes to tear. I was prepared for my eyes to burn. And they said it didn't happen. And they said it was the size of a grapefruit. The other girl said her eyes didn't burn, and her was even bigger than that. And so that put in mind, I remember I was cutting some onions one time, and I was like, wow, my eyes aren't burning. Maybe I got used to it, but that wasn't hardly the case. But anyway, I want you to look up what is a drug. And then look up, is sugar a drug? This is something that's even put in canned goods. When I buy orange juice or like kombucha or other beverages, I always check to see if it has added sugar, because I try to refrain from added sugar unless I'm just getting a piece of cake, or getting a donut that particular day. If I feel like doing so, I don't do it a lot, but when I'm drinking something, I look to see if they added sugar. I'll look at other things, because there's a lot of things that I eat and drink that taste good to me where there's no sugar added. And whenever I see added sugar to, like, say, orange juice, I'm like, why couldn't they just sweeten it with mango or pear or apple or another fruit to sweeten it? At least it would have nutritional value, but then, I remember seeing a video 10 years or so ago where they did a test with mice, placing sugar water in one container and cocaine in another. And so they tried the cocaine, but when they got to that sugar water, they were pushing each other out the way, just like move, move. They kept trying to get to that sugar water. And see, they know that it's addictive. That's why they put it in there. Notice when you crave something, what is it when you crave? Something sweet, salty, or greasy. That's intentional. Table sugar has no nutritional value. Basically, it's just like someone selling drugs, cutting a product and adding something to it to stretch the drug out so they don't have to use as much as the drug. So it's like you're cutting the orange juice with sugar to stretch the orange taste, because sugar and salt enhances the taste and it stretches it, so you have to use less fruit, So the candy I showed you on the screen, it shows the flavor was strawberry, but the ingredients did show that it contained anything from the strawberry. When it says flavored, I would avoid. There's a brand of kombucha that I buy, and if it shows ginger in the ingredients, then there's ginger in it. That same brand sells a pineapple flavored one, and it reads pineapple flavored. But then when you go to the ingredients, there's nothing from the pineapple in there. So I actually called the number on the bottle, and she confirmed to me it's pineapple flavored and that there's nothing from the pineapple in it. I learned, and you can look it up. What does artificial mean? It's a chemical. You have dish detergent, shampoos, soaps, lotions that show mango tango or cucumber or raspberry and so forth. And there's nothing from those fruits in the product, but it smells dead on. It's all chemicals. Look up high fructose corn syrup. I think that's one of the things the liver cannot break down, but you might want to look that up. I watched a documentary years ago, and he revealed that there's 56 names for sugar, maybe even more than that since the documentary. It's just becoming so tricky where it's even hard to make a decision, even with like basic fruit and vegetables. I remember back in the day where McDonald's revealed there's 32 ingredients in their chicken McNuggets, and I think that was just the meat, not to mention the flour. Think of if you fix something like chicken tenders or something like that at home and how many ingredients you would use. I remember Taco Bell revealed their meat is 88% meat. So it's like, well, what's the other 12%? So 3 of the other ingredients they say they use, you have to look them up. They're actually types of sugar, 3 different types of sugar. And then there was some other ingredients. Think about the stuff in a vending machine or in processed foods. It's like, to me, like, say if I see a Snickers, I'm like, well, when did they actually take the nut out of the shell? When did they actually cut the potato to make the chip? What's nugget? What's caramel? As you get older, you start wondering about some things like that. They start putting when a date when it's best to be consumed by, but I'd rather know when it's manufactured. It's too long out. If they are modifying and engineering, they have extracted the nutrients that we reap health benefits from. If the onion is not making us cry or burning our eyes, which is probably helpful too, and it aids in our immune system, whatever they removed or tweaked that where our eyes don't burn anymore or tear, it probably no longer helps our immune system. The same with garlic and ginger. It's like, normally if I have something with garlic or onion, it'll break up my mucus and it'll help my sinuses. But this isn't the case all the time. They're basically using onion as seasoning and not for health benefits anymore. I mean, we come from the earth. So it's what comes from the earth that sustains us. And now they're trying to engineer and modify it. Like many of these videos, there's so much to say, and more than likely, there may be a follow-up. But I do hope this has educated you on the practices of the industry, what options they are giving us when we go to these grocery stores, and how it impacts our mind, body, and health. Even Whole Foods, Trader Joe's, Sprouts, and all these that we knew to be healthy. In addition, I hope it propels you to do your own research or at least read labels to understand what you're eating. Ask for a manager and ask, are their fruits and veggies non-GMO and organic? Even if it's been sprayed and it's not organic, you can always wash that off. But when it's been engineered or modified, that's what you don't want. So at least make sure it's non-GMO. Don't be tricked by organic, because again, that just means it hasn't been sprayed, but it may still be engineered or modified. Even the dogs now, they are diabetic. When I was growing up, and I've had many dogs over the years, none of the dogs was not, was diabetic. But now, it's such a lucrative business, that they're putting real things, they're putting corn, and other things in the dog food as well. Many people, their dogs are extension of their families. They have them for 15 years. Like I have 2 of them for 14 years, one almost 15. And it's a lucrative business. The vet, they make a lot of money. I remember one time I was at the vet and the bill was $300, and I was talking to a lady and she had paid $5,000, and she was like, "Oh, he's worth every penny of it." And then one of the people came out and said, "Hey, your insurance, we found the paperwork and everything, so it'll just be half of that." So she, $2,500 on that visit. And so because it's a lucrative business and people are spending so much money on dog clothes, toys, fancy leashes, and they're making YouTube videos, Instagram and TikTok videos with their dogs doing, it's become a big business. So their food is being made differently because they know people will spend the money when their dog is sick, And so, lastly, I just want to say this, it just came to my mind, where, I've come home around midnight and I've heard the birds chirping, and I'm like, what's up with that? Like, we never heard birds chirping. They normally brought in the day, but they're chirping at midnight, which kind of tells me that their natural system has been modified some type of way, because they're normally not up at midnight. We also learned where there was a bee die-off, because bees go from flower to flower, so they too are affected by fake and unnatural produce. We've seen articles where they said they have intentionally sent modified mosquitoes out, so when they mate with other mosquitoes, they won't get West Nile or other diseases. So they're trying to contain the disease that the mosquitoes get, but they failed to mention what happens when these modified mosquitoes bite us. How does that affect us? Again, do your research, read your labels, ask questions about the produce, call the numbers on the containers if you want to know. And always say grace and thank God for providing and keeping you safe while you consume what they giving us, these options. I thank you for tuning in. I hope you share the videos as well as subscribe, like, whatever you led to do. But as always, all these videos I put out are to give information and to give what I've learned through my experience, what God has shown me in my spirit, what I've learned through my biblical studies. And we all have family, friends, co-workers, and so forth that don't know God, that want to know the truth. They don't know which religion or what. Just choose God. I do hope you share the videos with some people who don't know God, because even this video, I'm talking about nutrition, but there's biblical references to it. It's always going to have biblical references to it, because there's nothing new under the sun, as the word says. And sometime I might do a video on health and nutrition. Another time it might be on technology and social media, but it's always going to be informative. It's always going to be where my spirit leads me. And I have a lot of writings, and I just have to start plugging them out. And the writing I was doing on this, I actually couldn't find, but I did find some of the writing. So I had enough to at least do this one. So anyway, I thank you for tuning in. God bless you, and may He continue to keep you safe.